From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jordan Spieth's psychologist, also known as Jaime Hixson.
Hi, my name is Danny Willett's agent, also known as Eric Rosen.
We're very happy that you could join us this evening, ladies and gentlemen, but unfortunately, we have to start the show off on a really, really sad and depressing note because over the weekend, a very well-known football player had his life inexplicably, inexcusably, and senselessly taken away, and that's Will Smith. Will Smith, for all of the football fans, the diehard football fans know, spent 9 NFL seasons with the Saints. Well, just over the weekend, Will Smith became, unfortunately, the latest in a long line of victims of gun violence in New Orleans, one of the most deadly and most dangerous cities in the entire country. Even Will Smith himself tweeted one time a few years ago about the high homicide rate that has plagued that proud city. 28 murders in 22 days. This was what he tweeted about 5 years ago. Now, he himself has become a casualty. Will Smith left behind a wife and 3 children. And if there were ever a sense of irony in this whole thing, it's the perpetrator himself, who not only is the father of a son and runs his own business, but he was a former football player in the New Orleans high school circuit and was even playing semi-pro ball at the time of this atrocity of a murder. And this guy's father was shot and killed by New Orleans police many years ago, and the kid won a wrongful death suit against the New Orleans PD. And now what happens? Everything has come full circle for that perpetrator. Can you believe that this guy is actually asking for a lighter sentence all because he's thinking about his son and his business? He should have thought of that before he pulled the trigger on that poor guy.
You pretty much took the words right out of my mouth when you just said that. You know, when you perpetrate a crime, you know, granted I'm going to sound like McGruff, the crime-fighting dog, you know, you do the time. You know, you do the time. You commit a crime, you do the time. He committed a senseless, disgusting, outrageous crime on a person who had no beef with him whatsoever, who had no quarrel whatsoever. And because of that, now this guy left his wife behind. His 3 children are going to grow up the rest of their lives without their father. This man should have thought about that as well before he committed this crime.
For the record, the name of the gunman is Cordell Hayes.
Well, Cordell is a monster, an idiot. An expletive I can't say on television because, you know, we're on a family network. But believe me, I think there's some people who have an idea of what I'm thinking of. It's really sad.
It's gotten to the point where not even New Orleans Saints players are safe of all the homicides that are going on in New Orleans, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think was listed as one of the 10 most dangerous cities in the entire country, right up there with St. Louis, Detroit, Flint, Michigan.
Well, Flint is not safe now.
Oakland, California.
Well, Flint's not safe because of the drinking water on top of the high crime rate there. But yeah, Oakland County, you know, Oakland, California is
California is one of them. Just across the river, Newark is another.
Camden,
New Jersey is notorious for gun violence, but that's beside the point. The point is, this could have been avoided if cooler heads had just prevailed.
It is senseless.
All over a fender bender. All because the guy, first off, the guy ran into Will Smith's Mercedes. Cordell Hayes' Hummer hit that Mercedes from behind. So if anything, he should have been watching where he was going.
Doesn't matter. In his mind, he was just preheated, and he was pissed, and he wanted to take it out. But unfortunately, what he did has irreparable damage for both sides. Because Cordell's son now is going to grow up without a father. And you know what? I'm sorry to the son, and believe me, I am. But your father did something wrong, and he's going to have to do the time. And Will Smith's kids are going to be without their father. These kids are the ones who are now going to be punished throughout all this, who have to go through this for the rest of their lives, replay this situation. But you know what?
And we have to mention that also caught in the crossfire was Will Smith's wife, who got capped in the legs twice. Fortunately, she's doing okay.
You know what? Let's just, let's keep all these people in our thoughts and prayers, and knowing that that's all we can do is just keep them in our thoughts and prayers and hope that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. That's something. I'm sorry.
If this doesn't prove that we need stricter gun laws, not just in New Orleans and the state of Louisiana, but the entire country, I don't know what will. This is why this upcoming election that's taking place in November is going to be so crucial for the state of this country down the road. But that's a story for another day.
Definitely. But you know what? Let's go to some happier times.
Yeah, that's the thing. With all of the sad news, the cold reality is that we do have to move on. And there is some stuff that's going on in other sports.
Starting with this past weekend, we mentioned last week about the tradition, unlike anything else, on CBS. The Masters took the 80th edition from Augusta National in Augusta, Georgia. One of the most prestigious trophies to ever win. Even though it's not really a trophy, it's a green jacket. Really. You think of the World Series trophy, think of the NBA Finals trophy, and you think of all the other trophies out there. The green jacket is up there with those trophies and accomplishments. Yeah. And this year, of course, it wasn't Jordan Spieth. Why? Well, let me go through the replay. On Sunday, heading in the front nine, Jordan Spieth had 3 birdies in the front nine. That put him at a 5-hole advantage over the rest of the field at -7 under par. Then we go to the 10th hole, and this is where things really he bogeys from the bunker on the 10th hole. Then he hits a tee shot into the trees on number 11 and ends up bogeying from that. Then came the dreaded 12th hole. And let me tell you, folks, this was the shot from hell. The 12th hole, he quadruple bogeys. He goes from being 5 under, he goes from having a nice lead, of 5 shots at the part, It's at the.
Is it as difficult as the 12th hole, which becomes a golfer's downfall, or is it a combination of things? Because it seemed like he had everything under control, and all of a sudden, hold on, I'm doing this thing like what Curly did in the Three Stooges. Okay, is it as simple as that? That his lead wound up getting away through a combination of things.
It was the 12th hole. That's what really changed the game, because he had those 2 bogeys. Had he made it through the par 3 12th hole, he could have easily made it through the next 2 holes, which were par 5s. All he needed to do was at least par at the 12th hole, par 3, and unfortunately, he quadrupled bogeys. First 2 shots, he hits into the water hazard. Yep, he ends up going from being, in the 10th hole, I'm sorry, folks. I have all my notes. On the 10th tee, he was 5 shots ahead. On the 13th, he's 3 shots behind. And the guy that really ends up taking advantage of this, on the 14th hole, the 28-year-old Englishman, Danny Willett. This was a relative unknown to most American players. Very well known on the European Tour. Won at the Dubai Cup tournament. And this guy ends up taking advantage, at the 14th hole, and especially when he birdies within 1 shot. Then he has, which was really outstanding. Then on the 16th, the par 3 16th, he ends up getting the birdie that puts him in the lead for the first time. And that was when we had our first leader. 'Cause going to that 16th hole for Willett, Jordan Spieth was the leader for most of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I think what really hurt him, though, was round 3. If you look at the bogey he made on the 17th hole of round 3 and the double bogey at the 18th hole, that put him at a 3. That put him only in a one-shot lead over Smiley Kaufman, who he ended up, who he had the final, of course, twosome with, going to the 4th round. And that par 3 12th hole turned everything around. But in the 13th and 14th, the 13th hole in 14th he parred. The 15th, he birdied. He needed to birdie on the 16th, where, earlier in the day, there were 3 golfers at the par 3 16th that had hole-in-ones.
Mm-hmm.
Never been done in one round,
Yep.
which is unbelievable. Louis Oosthuizen did it earlier in the day, being one of the 3. But going back to Jordan Spieth, he had a clear shot on the 16th on his second shot. All he had to do was putt the ball. He misses it to the left.
Mm-hmm.
He ends up parring, of course, but then the 17th, he bogeys on the 17th hole yet again, and it was over for him.
Wow.
There was no way, because at that point, the 17th, he was 2 shots down to Danny Willett. He had to birdie on the 17th and birdie on the 18th to force a playoff.
Can Spieth recover from this in the next tournament that he plays?
Oh, without a doubt. And the next major tournament won't be till June when they play the U.S. Open from Oakmont, Pennsylvania, Oakmont Country Club. So I wish we can maybe make a trip to Western Pennsylvania to go see this. The U.S. Open is another big major tournament, of course. This is the tournament that I'm hoping to see lefty Phil Mickelson win, because if he wins, he'll complete a career Grand Slam. He's won 3 Masters tournaments, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't make the cut this week.
Yeah.
And also, Ricky Fowler didn't make the cut this week.
Mm-hmm.
Ernie Els took him 6 shots on the first hole. He floundered after that and couldn't make the cut. So there were plenty of notable golfers who didn't make the cut. Tiger Woods, of course, didn't even appear. I feel bad for Jordan Spieth, but at the same time, he handled it like a professional. He was clearly upset, nearly choked, in fact, on camera, but he handled it like a pro.
Yep.
That's why, at the age of 22 and 8 months, he really has more maturity than I've seen in most athletes.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good Texas man. I'm hoping to see him bounce back, win the U.S. Open.
Well, he's got 2 months to try and right himself, so maybe he'll have his chance.
Do you know that Danny Willett, the guy who won, he wasn't even supposed to play in this tournament. His wife was actually originally supposed to give birth on yesterday. They gave birth to their son, Zachariah James, March 30th. So he was able to make it to the tournament. He becomes only the 2nd Englishman to win the green jacket. The only person that's won it 3 times, Nick Faldo. Mm-hmm. 1996 was the last time. In fact, Willett's the first European to win the green jacket in 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think this guy, we're going to probably see him at the U.S. Open for sure. In other sporting news, last Monday, of course, was the ending of the college basketball season.
Technically, it was last Tuesday because the women played, but last Monday was the ending of the men's season. And boy, were basketball fans treated to a hell of a game.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1, you had Villanova and North Carolina for the title in Houston. Villanova just dismantled Oklahoma by 42 points. No one saw that coming. And North Carolina basically discarded Syracuse like they were not even there. This set up real nicely for Carolina to win the title. But no one counted on the resiliency and the all-in-out great execution by Villanova to take this game. And I just found out that there's a whole bunch of guys that are going to be declaring for the draft, 2 of which, Melo Trimble and Diamond Stone.
From Maryland.
They're going to be the latest 2 players to go to the NBA draft. But going back to this game, first off, Villanova played tremendous defense the entire time. And the way they shot the ball that weekend was off the charts. They were, I think, 72% from the field in the Oklahoma game.
Oh, yes.
And then came 60% shooting in the Carolina game.
And what the thing about this team, there's not just one good player. They really had a great combination of different players. Their bench really did well in this tournament, especially this one kid, Phil Booth.
Yeah.
Really good bench player who had a career high 20 points and
showed a little distance from the floor. But how about Ryan Arcidiacono?
Oh, the kid from Langhorne,
Pennsylvania. Yeah. Did you know that I got my car from a dealer in Langhorne, Pennsylvania?
You know Sesame Place is in Langhorne?
That's right. Sesame Place is in Langhorne, Pennsylvania.
But yes,
and Langhorne is the latest. Well, turns out Arcidiacono is the latest product to come out of Langhorne. Do you know that he was this close to going to the University of Florida? Your favorite school? And his parents had to call Jay Wright and convince him to tell him to back out of his verbal commitment because they wanted their son to go to Villanova just like his parents did.
And to stay close to home.
Of course.
And I think he made the right decision. Look where, this was a team that most people counted out in the first round. Not even, let alone win the title. They didn't expect them to make it out of the first weekend, which has been the bane of Villanova's existence the last 2 years.
Yep.
They made it out of the first weekend. Mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Then they make it out of the second weekend to get to be in the Final Four. Then the Final Four comes against Oklahoma, and they destroyed them. They held Buddy Hield, one of the best players of the college basketball season, to a mere, what was it?
9 points.
9 points.
9 points, 4 out of 14 shooting from the field. That is a testament of spectacular defense that Villanova played in that game. They were not as great, but they really held their own against a Carolina squad that had some really good young players. Bryce Johnson, Justin
Page.
Jackson, Marcus Page, of course.
He's the guy who got the game-tying three-pointer because they were down by 6 points with about a minute 52 to go, and Marcus Page got the game-tying three-pointer with just seconds left on the clock.
On a real prayer when you think about it, because he had to alter his shot
from the right corner.
And
it was one of my favorite shots, but the next shot, that's the one that everybody will be talking about going till, when college basketball begins again.
They're going to talk about that shot at the Villanova campus for about 20 years.
You think about it, because this is a play, actually, they run a lot in practice.
Mm-hmm.
But in this version, which was crazy.
It was Chris Jenkins that wound up making the game-winning three. And just to give you an idea about the type of shooters that they have on that team, it's Arcidiacono, it's Chris Jenkins, it's Phil Booth.
Daniel
Ochefu, who is a really, really serviceable big man. I think he's only a junior. He might be back for to help them defend the title next year. Villanova, they're going to be losing some seniors. Arcidiacono is going to be one of them. And he had a brilliant career playing for the Wildcats. The numbers didn't show a lot, but he had a really good career for them, and he's going to be really missed.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think the play, really, Ochefu was the guy who flipped the ball to Jenkins, and it was Jenkins who made that beautiful three-point shot. They won 77-74 at the buzzer. They had the refs had to look at the replay to make sure he got the shot off before the clock.
He definitely got the shot off in time, and it was definitely a tray. It was about as good a shot as it has ever left anybody's hands. And of course, with this victory comes a whole bunch of rumors regarding Jay Wright.
Including, I was hearing, there might be a possibility, just a slim possibility that Colangelo, not Jerry, but his son, who's the new GM for the 76ers, might try to lure Jay Wright into being the 76ers' next head coach, which is insanity. Why would you leave the institution that you have made your home for so many years? That's been the home of Massimo. Back in 1985, this is the
Raleigh Massimino, yeah. Raleigh Massimino was at the game, and so was Mike Fratello.
Part of that 85 squad. That's the year I was born, folks. That was the year when the NCAA introduced the field of 64.
And I remember that 85 season really vividly. 85 was when they had 3 Big East Conference schools St. John's, Georgetown, and Villanova in the Final Four, and Georgetown played Villanova for the championship, and that was the game that Villanova shot 78% from the field in the second half.
Can you name the non-Big East team that was in the tournament?
Memphis State.
Which was crazy. Memphis State, the only non-Big East team in that Final Four that year. And everybody considered the Georgetown St. John's game the real national title game.
Yeah.
They considered an utter joke and all that people looked at.
And I remember that Final Four as if it were yesterday. St. John's, of course, had Chris Mullin, Walter Berry, Mark Jackson, Bill Wennington, among others. Villanova had Dwayne McClain, Gary McClain, Ed Pinkney, who had a really good career in the NBA.
Another McClain? I'm kidding.
John Pannone, who went on to play in Italy. Rollie Massimino was the head coach then. Georgetown, of course, had Patrick Ewing and Michael Jackson and David Wingate and a whole host of other players. That's 3 Hall of Famers that were in that Final Four.
Did Jackson moonwalk a lot?
No. This is not to be confused with Michael Jackson, the singer. This is Michael Jackson, the point guard.
I know. That was just another bad attempt at a joke on my part.
I know.
But I'll be honest, that Georgetown team, they were a rough and tough squad. They really
They were the most physical team in the country. I mean, they were really battering and bruising opponents left and right.
Them and Houston, the Cougars, they were probably the 2 most bruising teams back in the 80s when it came to college basketball.
Although Houston was a lot more known for their aerial ability and their transition game. They were known as Five Slammer Jammer for a reason, because it was basically Dunk City back in the day. They were the first original Dunk City going back in the early 80s.
But to me, though, they did have their moments where they were pretty tough. But Georgetown, they were a style unto themselves.
Yeah.
Literally, people wore Georgetown clothes like it was, Prada or Louis Vuitton,
Yeah.
They wore with pride.
Patrick put that school on the map when he arrived as a freshman out of high school in 81.
But going back to this game, because you look at what the results are going to be for Villanova right now. This is a great, recruiting tool for Villanova. But for North Carolina, they face an impending NCAA ruling.
Yeah.
That's the really terrible part.
And the other school that was in the Final Four, Syracuse, they've got violations on their head as well. If anything, Syracuse and Carolina have one thing in common. The violations consist of academic fraud. In this case, basically looking for either tutors or other students or even teachers, professors, to do classwork for them or take exams for them.
It's really bad what went down with these schools. The NCAA will definitely look into this. I'm expecting several suspensions, probably some academic scholarships taking away, and possibly a postseason ban for these 2 schools next year. I would not be shocked to see that happen. The same thing with Louisville, who also has some impending...
and Louisville took themselves out of the NCAA tournament this year because of their impending violations, specifically how they were using escorts, if you know what I mean, to try and lure recruits onto campus.
Hey, that's one way to get your school spirit. No, that's not really.
That kind of sort of reminds me of the movie that Spike Lee did many years ago. He got game.
I remember that scene. In fact, I'm not going to go into detail, folks, because it's pretty vivid. But let's put it this way:
Ray Allen was kept company by some rather attractive women, and needless to say, these women put a smile on his face. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Now, while
the movie,
while the men ended their season a week ago tonight, the women ended their season a week ago tomorrow night. And guess who won the women's national title for the 11th time?
The UConn Lady Huskies.
Yes.
And they're amazing, talented, big woman, Brianna Stewart. She really was not, at the beginning, she was a baseball player growing up. And then she transitioned to basketball because she was too tall for the game of baseball. I think it was a good transition for her. And you know what?
She's become the most dominant player in this era of women's basketball. Don't be surprised if you see her maybe be the first pick of the WNBA draft soon.
Oh, without a doubt. Remember when the Baylor lady,
Yeah, I know you're exactly talking about Brittany Griner.
when she came out, she was probably one of the most hyped players to go to the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
Brianna Stewart, every team is going to be salivating for her services.
Yep. And, of course, Brianna Stewart has a couple of local ties because she grew up in upstate New York. Now she's got a chance to really make her mark in the WNBA.
I hope she plays for the Liberty.
Well, you never know, but this does beg a question. UConn has won the last 4 national championships, 11 titles in the last 25 years, 21 years to be exact.
That's the power of Gene Auriemma.
Yep. There has been talk that their dominance has become bad for women's basketball.
Oh, that's crap in itself. I'm sorry to say the least. Are you kidding me? They're going to say because the success of one school, that's bad. If anything, that should actually be good for this sport.
If anything, this only reiterates the theory that a lot of these schools really have to start doing more of their homework if they're going to get the 4- and 5-star prospects that UConn has had. I mean, think about it. Rebecca Lobo, Kara Walters, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Tina Charles, and now Brianna Stewart. All of them, what do they have in common?
They're stars.
They all became stars who won national championships at UConn.
This is what recruiting is about.
You need to have a really strong and trusting and consistent and also knowledgeable recruiting staff if you're going to win a national title. Look who Gino Auriemma has on his staff. She's got Shea Ralph, a girl who won a championship for him many years ago as a starting point guard. Probably one of the best recruiters in the entire country. And it also helps that she grew up in a basketball state, North Carolina, which has produced some great players, men and women, in the past.
I know. It is. It doesn't matter what sport it is, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, recruiting is key.
Recruiting is critical. Now it's gotten to the point where in the college football ranks, there are kids who want to go from the West Coast to the East Coast or maybe even to the Sun Belt or the Deep South because they know that is where the best college football is right now.
I know. Or, Syracuse could be on the rise. Even though Syracuse, unfortunately, has had a bit of a dry spell for football lately, maybe somewhere down the line, Syracuse will rise from the ashes. But, yes, in college football, it's true. They want to go to the Florida State. They want to go to Florida, or they want to go to Texas or Baylor, or they want to go to teams like UCLA or Nebraska or Michigan.
Or the Southeastern Conference, specifically Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Georgia, Florida. They want to go to the Southeastern Conference right now because that is the dominant power in college football.
As long as they go to my Gators, I'll be happy. Don't go to any of my competitors in the SEC. Now, into some other news in the world of sports. NASCAR Sprint Cup race from Texas Motor Speedway took place this weekend, and guess who won for the second straight week?
Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch. He's won 4 races in the span of 8 days. He's won 2 Sprint Cup races in a row. He won the Camping World Series last week from Martinsville, and he won an Xfinity Series race at Texas Motor Speedway. He's the first person to win, to sweep races in 2 straight weeks since Richard Gant did it in 1991 in NASCAR. He drives, of course, the number 18 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. The power of Joe Gibbs in NASCAR. It's unbelievable, as well as Hendrick Motorsports, too. Let's see what he can do coming up from Bristol Motor Speedway this coming weekend. Now, in a few weeks, of course, less than a month, the Kentucky Derby will be underway.
Yes. The fastest 2 minutes in sports, horse racing, and it all starts in Louisville.
And before it can even happen, they have these Grade 1 stakes races. The pre-Kentucky Derby races that horses need to be in order to qualify for the Derby. And this past weekend, there were 3 big races, starting with the Bluegrass Stakes from Keeneland Racing Track. And it was Brody's Cause who won by a 1 3/4 length victory to win the $1 million race at Keeneland. It was a really good start for this horse. And then Todd Fletcher's horse, who suffered several losses, but yet at the Wood Memorial from Aqueduct in our neck of the woods, his horse won Outwork. Unbelievable. Outwork beating the oncoming Trojan Nation. Trojan Nation, was an 81-1 long shot actually in this race and yet didn't win. But Outwork, of course, did his job at the very end and qualified for the May 7th race. And then finally, one of the big races, the Santa Anita Derby from Santa Anita, California. And it was unbelievable. Kent DeSormo, one of the most recognizable jockeys in all of horse racing from Maurice, Louisiana. He's got that real thick Southern accent of his. Exaggerator, the 3-year-old colt, wins in a rain-soaked track at Santa Anita by a 6 1/4 length victory. Unbelievable finish. Now is ready to qualify, but the horse that everybody will be talking about is Nyquist. All 7 races, all 7 victories. Didn't race in Santa Anita, where Nyquist is a big favorite, because the week before it raced at the Florida Derby, one of the big races that actually tells people who's going to be the winner at the Derby. 11 of the last 12 horses that won at Florida have gone on to win the War of the Roses, if you will. But coming up this week, there are 2 more races left before the Kentucky Derby, so we'll report on that next week. And in terms of fighting, we might have seen the last of Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, he won his match against Timothy Bradley by a decision, but is this really the last match for Manny Pacquiao, or is he just blowing off steam? For the record, he won all 3 rounds unanimously by the same exact score, 116-110.
Yep. It was crazy to go all these 12 rounds to win this fight. This was the 3rd fight in this rivalry. The first fight in 2012, that was very controversial. He should have won that fight.
Yeah.
Even Bradley's manager said he should have won.
Yeah.
The second one, Pacquiao won that fight clearly. This fight, he had 2 knockdowns nearly in the 7th and 9th rounds. And, in fact, he only landed 28% of his punches, but the 7th and 9th round knockdowns, especially the 7th round where he had that crazy left hand that forced Bradley to double over, and then in the 9th round we dropped him, with a few hard left hands. But yes, he did win this fight, but they're friends. They're actually friends. In fact, Pacquiao invited Bradley to his Sunday prayer breakfast.
Interesting.
They hugged each other in the ring. You didn't see that when Pacquiao faced Mayweather.
Oh, no. Floyd Mayweather has long had a reputation for being so into himself and so narcissistic that he has not made any friends in the business.
Well, and he knows it too. That's the thing about Mayweather. He knows it and he doesn't care. He said, you love me, hate me, I don't give a crap. This is who I am. This is how I act. If you don't like it, you can kiss my rear end. But Manny Pacquiao is probably one of the most humble fighters.
Yep.
He started his career in 95. He won in a record 8 divisions in his time. He's faced the likes of Antonio Margarito. He's faced, of course, some Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mosley, Ricky Haston, Marco Antonio Barea, Eric Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez. These are some notable fighters he's fought in his career.
Yep.
Including Miguel Cotto, too. One of my favorite fighters.
Yeah.
Who I actually thought I saw one time on the 7th train after a Met game. And
Interesting.
I thought it was him, and I was like, I was with my brother, and isn't that Miguel Cotto? I feel like I should go over and say hello to him. I don't know. Because he was at the Met game.
Yeah.
So it could have been him. I was a little scared, too, to go up to the guy, because I don't know if he was going to be nice to me or bark my head off. But
It's funny that you mentioned that story, because one time I was on the train coming home from a Yankee game, and it just so happens that I saw a rather washed-up boxer enter the number 4 train, and
Joe Louis? No.
Close. Does the name... Well, unfortunately, the name escapes me, but he had the dubious distinction of losing to Mike Tyson all those years ago. It was Mitch Blood Green.
Oh, my God.
Mitch Blood Green was the boxer that I saw on the 4 train all of those years ago.
Man, well, Tyson exactly an easy fighter to go up against. Ask Evander Holy. Well, I'm not. That's not really nice because unfortunately that fight didn't exactly end well. But for Manny Pacquiao, 53 victories in his career. He did have some controversy. He did make some anti-homophobic remarks. Unfortunately, that cost him his sponsorship deal with Nike. And right now he's considering retiring, as we mentioned, to run for a Senate seat in the Philippines.
Yeah, just keep him away from the microphone because if he's trying to fancy himself a singer, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, please don't sing at all. Don't even, just be a politician right now. Care for the people and just rethink those remarks. I think that's something that he really needs to rethink and realize how horrible those comments were. But other than that, Pacquiao, for all intents and purposes, was not a bad person. Except for
he's not a bad guy, but those comments were just completely out of line and completely ignorant.
But other than that, humble guy from humble beginnings, and right now we don't know what the next step will be for him. Where he'll go from here. I'm wishing him nothing but the best. Now MLS, we're into the 6th week, of course, of the season, and right now Philadelphia beat Orlando City 2-1. Montreal defeated Columbus Crew 2-0. New England beat Toronto, actually tied with Toronto FC 1-1. DC United took care of Vancouver 4-0. Sporting KC defeated our own Red Bulls. The Red Bulls are just having a terrible season.
Yeah.
2-0. FC Dallas tied San Jose 2-2. Real Salt Lake defeated Colorado 1-0. And I'm not sure yesterday of the New York City FC result.
I could probably find out for you right now, but in the meantime, tell us what else is going on.
In the world of sports right now, of course, we just had our first week of Major League Baseball, folks. And the New York Yankees really had a really incredible week for one guy, Starlin Castro. Starlin Castro really had...
Starlin Castro, bottom line, has completely torn up the American League circuit right now. And it's only been a week. And for the record, the NYC Football Club finished in a scoreless tie with Chicago.
The game that really was Starlin Castro's coming out party Wednesday when the New York Yankees rocked Houston 16-6, including the 5 runs that Castro drove in and those couple home runs that he had in the game. In the first 2 games at that point, he had a record 7 RBIs, better than Todd Green, who did it in 2001 for the Yankees.
And for the record, Castro has 8 RBIs to start the season and 9 hits, an .850 slugging percentage, and a 1.326 on-base plus slugging percentage.
How about Thursday when Teixeira had that tie-breaking 3-run homer in the 7th inning, and they won 8-5?
That was such a big hit for them. Huge hit.
And then, unfortunately, Friday they did lose to Detroit in Detroit's home opener 4-0. It was one of the coldest games in Comerica Park history.
Yeah, and then the next day, the Yankees wound up getting a really, really important start from CC Sabathia. Was not great, but did exactly what he was supposed to, which was get 5 good innings 6 good innings into the game, and the Yankees wound up winning 8-4. Last night's game was postponed, so they're going to make it up later.
Yeah, 3 runs. He gave up 4 hits, 6+ innings, walking 4, striking out 3. It was his first start since alcohol rehabilitation. So at least he got back in the swing of things.
And this was such a huge start for Sabathia. So far, so good for him, but again, it's really early. Up next, the Yankees have the Blue Jays for 3 games north of the border coming up starting tomorrow. Let's see if the Yankees can right the ship this time against the Blue Jays team that completely had their number last year.
And how about this past week, though? The Blue Jays, their hitting has been not exactly up to par. Their rotation, however, has really surprised people. Marco Estrada, 7 innings. Aaron Sanchez has gone 7. J.A. Happ went 6 innings. They really have done their job, but the offense was shut out even on Sunday.
Yeah. Boston went into Toronto and took 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays, which was a really important start for them to on the road this season.
Hanley Ramirez, 10 for 23 so far on the week, a double, a triple, even a homer. He's really off to a good start. He's gonna, if he keeps hitting like this, he's gonna be that investment that was worth it in last year's offseason. As for the Tampa Bay Rays right now, they're just looking for their first quality start.
Yeah.
Yeah, they split a 4-game series with Toronto.
Yeah.
They dropped 2 out of 3 against the undefeated Baltimore Orioles, who actually won today. They're 6-0 to start the year off, which is unbelievable.
And they're the only undefeated team in baseball right now.
And the Rule 5 pick guy, Joey Rickard, 8 for 18 this week with a double and a home run. Great. So that's really in the AL East. As for the Mets, they were off Monday. They lost Sunday to the Royals. Tuesday, Syndergaard, who dominated against the Royals in the World Series, in fact, was memorable for throwing over Escobar's head.
Yeah, and it wound up really drawing the ire of the Royals in that Game 3. There was talk that maybe there was going to be some retaliation against the Mets after that incident, but obviously Ned Yost was not going to have any of it. He just squashed it. So the Royals took Game 1, mostly because Yoenis Cespedes suddenly forgot how to catch a fly ball, which should have been caught, and he also wound up striking out with runners in scoring position to end the game.
But Neil Walker, after the doubts that people had since he got acquired from Pittsburgh, well, he really did something to help cast those doubts away. Got a big home run off Chris Young in this game. They ended up winning 2-0 against Kansas City.
I don't know what doubts they might have regarding Walker. I mean, he's always been a decent player. He's been a really good player for the Pirates. He's been able to hold the position over at second base. I think he's going to do some really good things for the Mets this season.
They were off Wednesday and Thursday. They come home Friday for their home opener against Philadelphia, a team after all going to the game was 0-3.
Yep.
Now they were 0-4. Why? Jacob deGrom, who many people didn't know if he was going to play or pitch or not because the impending birth of his baby
boy. Yeah.
Yep. In Florida, so who knew if he was going to pitch? But right now, he's dealing with a lat issue.
Yeah, and so he's not going to be making his next start, which is going to be in the Marlins series, which is right now to be exact.
Exactly, yeah. They're playing as we speak right now at Citi Field on ESPN.
And just to give you an update, there's no score between the Marlins and Mets in the second inning, but the Marlins are threatening. Bases loaded, nobody out.
Oh, yeah, Steven Matz, the Long Island kid, is making his start tonight against Jared Cosart, who the Marlins actually acquired last year in the trade deadline from Houston.
Yep.
Now, deGrom, 76 pitches through 6 innings. He did have that lat issue, but really the game came down. Neil Walker again. Another big hit from him and Michael Conforto off of Jared Eichhoff. 0-4, pretty bad start. But
Saturday was such a tremendous pitching duel between those two teams, but once again, the Mets went back to some really, really bad habits, specifically not being able to get a big hit with runners in scoring position. In this case, they barely got any base runners in that game. Same thing with yesterday.
It took a 5th-inning homer from Ryan Howard off of Bartolo Colon. Vince Velasquez had a really good 6th-inning start for the team, including 16 consecutive fastballs. Phillies won 1-0, avoiding what would have been their first 0-5 start since 1934.
And then came yesterday, and once again the Mets had trouble scoring runs.
Odubel Herrera, a 2-run homer off of Matt Harvey. Harvey's been rocked in his first 2 starts.
Yeah, he's had some real problems this season. I think it might be a bit of a control issue for him, and unfortunately, you're not going to like this. Adeiny Echevarria got himself a 2-run single. It's 2-0 Marlins in the second inning.
Yay, thank you for that update. I'm sorry, I know.
Once again, it is early.
I know. And Adeiny Echevarria. He's an integral part. He actually came from the Marlins farm system, in fact. Along Christian Yelich. He's a part of that really good outfield system. And, of course, they got Giancarlo Stanton, who's their biggest investment on that team.
Yeah, he of the 13-year contract.
Oh, yeah, $325 million. That's why, if you notice his helmet, what he wears, he's got, like, a blade coming right here that protects his face.
Yeah, because he wound up getting plunked in the face during a game, I think it was a year ago, and he wound up having his jaw broken.
And you know what? The Marlins, their ace, Jose Fernandez, lost his very first start at Marlins Park this past week in their series, I believe, against
Detroit.
Yeah, against Detroit. In fact, in that NL East altogether, the Braves they're one of only 2 winless teams after the first week.
This is going to be a very, very, very long season. Maybe a long 2 or 3 seasons for the Braves. They're basically starting from scratch. They're going with a lot of young players.
And veterans.
And to go along with some of their veterans. So it's going to be a matter of time before the Braves can be taken seriously again.
I know Eric Ibar might even be demoted from shortstop to second base. And Daniel Castro, who they might be bringing up from AAA, could take over at his place. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies, they were swept by the Reds, as we mentioned. They did take 2 out of 3 from the Mets. So let's see what they can do from here if to be taken seriously. And
this afternoon, the Phillies wound up losing to the Padres.
So not that much. As for the Marlins, we mentioned Jose Fernandez lost his first start at Marlins, first career loss at Marlins Park on Wednesday. He did strike out 13, 5 2/3 innings. Mm-hmm. The Nationals, of course, they were 3-1 in this week. Bryce Harper, of course, doing his thing. Daniel Murphy, 6 for 13, a double, a triple, and a homer. Anthony Rendon, 6 for 18, 2 doubles on the week. But they lost Ben Revere to a strained oblique.
Yep.
In the first game of the year. Mm-hmm. Michael Taylor, who took over from him, 1 for 16 with 5 strikeouts.
Again, this is early. It's just a matter of time before these guys snap out of it. But there may be a potential story to root for early this season.
Oh, I know.
And when I say story, I'm talking about Trevor Story.
The Rockies rookie, third.
Drafted out of high school in Texas.
Shortstop.
He makes his major league debut last week. And what does he do? 7 home runs in 6 games.
Which is an MLB record in that NL West division. This was a team of Rockies that people expected to finish in dead last in the NL West. And the thing is, their ERA as a team, they're the worst team ERA, 7.98. That's how bad things are. But Trevor Story is maybe the only good story that's coming out of the Rockies, no pun intended, as opposed to the Padres, who had a dubious distinction of owning 30 scoreless innings, a new MLB record.
Yep.
Has been done since the 1950s for this to be that bad. That's really, yet they go on the next 2 games and score 29 runs.
Yep.
That's unbelievable to go from not being able to buy a run in 30 innings to scoring 29 runs.
Yep. And whereas the Orioles are the only undefeated team in the American League, guess who has reclaimed their place in the National League West? And this just so happens to be during an even-numbered season. The San Francisco Giants.
Of course, they had 12 runs versus Willie Peralta, who was the pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. Their ERA could be a little better. They are 4.35, but they did go 3-0 with their record this week.
Yep.
And the biggest story, Brandon Belt, they signed him to a new 5-year, $72.8 million contract extension. So you got him for a while. You got, of course, Buster Posey there in the team. They got their players. They got the nucleus of their team for years to come.
Oh, yes. And it helps that they have one of the best organizations in baseball, led by a guy, Brian Sabean, who seems to pull a rabbit out of his hat every single time he makes a deal.
And one of my favorite managers, Bruce Bochy.
Yeah. He could very well be the best manager in baseball right now.
In the American League Central, the Minnesota Twins, a team average .223 batting average with 12 runs scored through 6 games.
And they just had their home opener at Target Field today. And just to give you an idea, for the record, the Twins wound up playing the White Sox, and the White Sox won 4-1. The Twins are now 0-7 this season.
That is just unbelievable. And they're going to be replacing Danny Santana with Max Kepler. Who they replaced on Sunday.
One of 2 winless teams in Major League Baseball. But just to give you an idea about how things were going over in the Twin Cities, check out this little photo that I got from my daughter, Emily. This is from the third base side of Target Field. She got tickets for opening day today.
Nice.
And it was a beautiful sunny day, yet it was extremely cold.
Of course. They just that area actually overcame a lot of snowstorms, canceled a lot of college spring games. In fact, especially in Evanston, Illinois, for Northwestern, it canceled last night's Sunday night baseball game between the Yankees and the Tigers. But the Chicago White Sox this year, some of the newcomers have not pulled their weight. Todd Frazier, Brett Lawrie, Jimmy Rollins, De'Aaron Navarro have all not hit above 182. That's right now, that's really sad, to say the least. These guys got to really pull their weight for this organization to pull through. The Indians, they haven't played many games. They've had to go through 3 postponements this week. They just are dying to play some baseball. The Tigers, of course, had a good start. Jordan Zimmerman against the Yankees, well worth the money they signed him for.
Yeah.
And the Royals right now, you know what? They took care of Minnesota.
Yep.
And the American League West, the Angels, yikes. The Mariners, at least Robinson Cano is hitting his home runs.
Yeah.
Tell
you what, the American League West is going to be extremely competitive this season because right now you have at least 4 out of those 5 teams that could win the division this year. You have the Angels, you have the Rangers, last year's champion, the Astros, last year's wild card, and the Mariners, who really grew by leaps and bounds last season.
And in the National League Central, to me, all Cubs all the time, despite the fact that Kyle Schwarber unfortunately tore his ACL and it's out for the year. But this team...
That's really going to hurt them.
But this is why they signed Dexter Fowler, to provide depth in that outfield position.
Now Dexter Fowler could be his replacement for the rest of the season, but losing Schwarber, especially after he showed so much promise last year, is going to really, really punch him in the gut.
I know he had an 891 OPS last year. He really was a valuable member of that team. In fact, they did a great story with him with a minor league team from RBI. That's an inner city organization for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And he, along with the Chicago Cubs, hosted this team and gave them all gloves. In fact, he gave one of the players a new catching glove too.
Yep.
It's going to be very sad to see him go, Kyle Schwarber. But I think the Cubs have enough players to really make a run. Now, hockey. The season ended yesterday.
Yep.
Now comes Wednesday night.
The real season begins Wednesday night. Just to give you an idea of exactly what's going to be happening in the Stanley Cup playoffs, all the seeds have been set, all the matchups have been set. In our neck of the woods, it's going to be Rangers-Penguins and Islanders-Panthers.
The Rangers play Wednesday?
The Rangers start playing on Wednesday. As for the Islanders, they're going to be playing, Thursday. Both the Rangers and Islanders start their respective series on the road. The Rangers are going to be on the USA Network, while the Islanders are going to be on CNBC to start things off.
In Sunrise, Florida. This is only the second time since 2000 that the Panthers have actually made the playoffs. The story for them this year has been the 44-year-old resurgence of Jaromir Jagr. Then you have Aaron Ekblad, Jonathan Huberdeau, Roberto Luongo at goaltender. This has been a great season for this organization.
A real surprise season for the Penguins. And looking at the Islanders side of things, John Tavares was extremely ordinary this year. Not only that, but they already lost one of their best players. He's going to be out for quite a bit.
Anders Lee, he's done. He fractured his leg in the final week. He's not even going to be available for the rest of the season. It's going to be several weeks with that fractured leg. And then you look at some of the other injuries. Travis Hamonich is injured. Kurbovsky, Yaroslav Halak. They're really missing a lot of their key guys. This is going to be a very tough for the Islanders to overcome this team. But I think if the Islanders are to win, they got to win on special teams. They got to win on the penalty kill, because the Panthers, that's where they really don't do well.
This is going to be the series where somebody is going to break a playoff drought. The last time the Islanders won a playoff series was 1993, when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. In those days, they were known as the Wales Conference Finals. The last time the Panthers won a playoff series, 2000.
Yep.
Somebody is going to make a break for it.
I'm going with the Panthers to win. I think they'll be able to exploit their ability to play 5-on-5 against the Islanders. And with the the fact that there's not many injuries on that Panthers squad, but like I said, if the Islanders are to win, they have to exploit the fact that the Panthers can't convert well on power plays, only 17%. So right there, if the Islanders are to win, it's the power play that will get them the victory in the
Now,
series.
as far as the Rangers are concerned, the Rangers have the Penguins coming up, and the last 2 times that they've met each other in the playoffs, the Rangers have come out victorious. But this time, it's going to be a whole different story because Sidney Crosby not only was the team's leading scorer this year, he actually got better, which is frightening if you're a Rangers fan. Plus, Marc-Andre Fleury, who's missed a lot of time because of injuries, could very well see some action this coming season, although they're in pretty good hands with the goaltending that they have. Not only that, but there's also the issue of Ryan McDonagh. Ryan McDonagh got hurt, and there's a strong possibility he might even miss the entire series. They do have Dan Girardi coming back, but those injuries. Not only that, but it's gotten to the point where we really worry about what the Rangers can do in Pittsburgh, because this time they have to go to Pittsburgh in order to start the series.
Their Fenwick rating is way below 51%, which is really a huge shot metrics number to look at for a lot of teams. The last team to win with a below 51% in terms of Fenwick rating was the 2009 Pittsburgh Penguins, who they are facing. The Penguins really got better once they let, Mike Johnston go. After they had that 15-10-3 start where Sidney Crosby was nowhere to be found, they had several injuries to key players. This is where Mike Sullivan came in to be the coach from the AHL. They did the same thing back in 2008-2009 when Michel Therrien was let go from the Penguins. They replaced him with Dan Bielema, and they won the Stanley Cup. So this could be the same deja vu all over again for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who last year lost in 5 games to the Rangers, all by a score of 2-1. Isn't that the crazy thing? All those games were 2-1.
Yeah.
And who was on that team? Carl Hagelin was on the Rangers. Guess what, though?
He's not there anymore.
He's a Penguin.
Yep.
Isn't that the crazy part? He's a Penguin.
So Hagelin is going to have a lot of things to teach the Penguins in the locker room about what the Rangers' strengths and weaknesses are.
Their strength is really King Henrik.
Yep.
He's really been the strength. When it comes to the postseason, the Rangers, he's been the really go-to guy that the Rangers rely on.
Yeah.
If you look at his last 4 years in terms of save percentage, 931, 934, 927, 928. He's never gone below 927.
Yeah.
What does that tell you right there?
It just goes to show you how rock solid he's been. Now, if the Rangers are going to have a chance, they have to steal a game in Pittsburgh because Madison Square Garden is where Henrik Lundqvist is really at his strongest. He's won 22 games at home this season. He was an under 500 goalie on the road.
I know. They do have to win. So that means we're going to have to see plenty of Rick Nash. This is where he's really going to have to earn that paycheck.
Rick Nash was traded to the Rangers for a reason, so he could be a shining star in a playoff series. And so far, he's been okay, but he really needs to step it up this time.
As for the other series, you got the Capitals taking on the Flyers. To me, this is a Capitals team that really needs to get this victory. They won the President's Trophy, but only one team has won the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup all in the same year. It is not easy. So will they be bitten by the curse of the trophy? We'll find out. As for the Flyers, they barely made it into the playoffs.
Yeah.
They really have to send the fruit basket to Boston for imploding. As for Tampa Bay, the litany of injuries with Stamkos, with Tyler Johnson right now, who just got ugly boarding play, Strowman, Stamkos, Hedman, Callahan, so many injuries to overcome.
The only reason why the Red Wings are even in the playoffs is because Boston self-destructed at the end of the season.
But they're going to have to rely on Zetterberg and Datsyuk, their veterans, to get them through. The Kings, of course,
Kings and Sharks this time, and I'll tell you right now, the Kings were the last team that the Sharks wanted to play in the first-round series. The Kings have owned the Sharks in the playoffs, and I still say the Kings are going to win this series.
The Ducks, I think, are actually going to win the whole thing. They got to play Nashville and take care of Pecorini. Blackhawks, team that's won 3 trophies in a span of 6 years.
And in the NBA playoffs, which are going to start Saturday, 14 spots have been determined. 2 more to go. They'll be determined in just a couple of nights.
That's just,
yep. That's going to do it for us, folks. So thanks to Kenny Graham for On the Other Side of the Glass, and thanks to you guys for watching at home.
I'm Eric.
For everyone here, I'm Jaime. Have a great night, folks.
Peace, Staten Island.